On this Sunday night, Trump's trade deal with the EU.
I think it's the biggest deal ever made. Thank you very much.
The presidents of the U.S. and European Commission shake on it. Details of the agreement just days before the deadline and what this means for Canada at the 11th hour. Israel pauses fighting and allows aid into Gaza. Why the desperately needed supplies are not enough to solve a deadly starvation crisis. Plus, wildfires erupt in Greece. What's fueling the flames and forcing thousands to flee. And the reigning Wimbledon champion shares the court and coaches fans in Montreal.
But I just played with a third in the world. It's amazing.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Tracy Tong.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with the latest move as the U.S. attempts to reorder the global economy, negotiating trade deals around the world in an effort to reduce trade deficits. Today, the U.S. and the EU reached a deal. After an hour-long meeting, American President Donald Trump and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, agreed to a 15% tariff on European imports to the U.S. The Trump administration has failed to deliver on a promise of 90 deals in 90 days, but several are being made ahead of Trump's August 1st deadline. Touria Izri reports on the fine print of this deal and what could be in store for Canada.
I think it's the biggest deal ever made. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
One deal, a third of global trade, and a lot of adjectives.
Very powerful deal. It's a very big deal. It's the biggest of all the deals.
The European Union and United States have come to a trade agreement, which includes across-the-board tariffs on EU goods entering the U.S. Not free trade, but lower than the 30% Trump had threatened.
We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. It will bring stability.
The EU has agreed to buy $750 billion in American energy, purchase more U.S. military equipment, and boost U.S. investments by $600 billion.
It gives much-needed clarity for our citizens and businesses.
This country still does not have clarity. Canada could be hit with tariffs on goods that don't fall under the North American Free Trade Agreement if a deal isn't reached by August 1st. Trump's Commerce Secretary told Fox News there's no changing that date.
So no extensions, no more grace periods. August 1st, the tariffs are set.
Trump did not mention Canada by name, but has hinted the U.S. may not strike an agreement with its northern neighbor. Whether the Prime Minister can get him to change his tune will be a major test. Mark Carney held a photo op in New Brunswick as the EU-U.S. deal was announced.
It helps us understand what the U.S. is willing to agree to with those other major trading partners.
The U.S. did not agree to lift steel and aluminum tariffs on Europe, levies that are also in place on Canada, along with auto parts and softwood lumber.
We are looking for the best deal for Canada.
But the big question is whether best really means least bad. Touria Izri, Global News, Montreal.
Israel is pausing some of its military operations in Gaza to allow for more aid as international anger grows over the humanitarian crisis there. Palestinians, including children, are starving to death every day. The UN says more than 1,000 have been killed trying to get food. And now there are calls for the U.S. to defund the controversial Israeli-backed organization distributing food. Candace Cole reports.
Children in Gaza cheering as their father brings home a sack of flour after going weeks without any food. Like so many other Palestinians caught in the crosshairs of Israel's war with Hamas, starving and desperate, this father of 6 says they've gone 40 days without flour. Sunday, he set out not knowing if he would return empty-handed or at all. We don't want negotiations, just let food and water through. At least when I die, there will be blood left in my body to drip. Israel announced a daily tactical pause of military operations to allow more food aid into Gaza, as over 130 people have died due to starvation.
It's just a question of opening all routes to get things inside Gaza. We know that airdrops are not safe and not efficient as much as it is to bring things by trucks.
The decision follows months of disastrous food allocations by the Israel-backed private American Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed trying to get food, according to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Some U.S. lawmakers want to see it defunded.
American taxpayers should not be spending one penny to fund this private organization backed by mercenaries and by the IDF that has become a death trap.
When asked about the situation in Gaza during his trip to Scotland, U.S. President Donald Trump complained about not receiving recognition for sending money for food and continued to parrot unsubstantiated claims of Hamas stealing humanitarian aid.
Well, you know, we gave $60 million 2 weeks ago, and nobody even acknowledged it, for food. People are stealing the food. They're stealing the money. They're stealing the money for the food.
The Netanyahu government did was scrap a delivery system that was working at delivering food and assistance. The real goal of this other effort is to use food as a weapon of war and population control.
The United Arab Emirates and Jordan are also conducting airdrops of food into Gaza. Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
More than 30 people have been killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo after armed militants attacked a church. It happened in Komanda. Officials say it was perpetrated by the Allied Democratic Forces, an affiliate of the so-called Islamic State. The group, carrying guns and machetes, reportedly stormed the church during evening mass. Several homes in the area were also burned. Officials warn the death toll could rise. Thailand and Cambodia have now agreed to ceasefire talks after days of deadly fighting along their border. The prime ministers of both countries plan to attend talks in Malaysia starting Monday to end the conflict over disputed areas. They also thanked U.S. President Donald Trump for reaching out and pushing for an end to hostilities. This morning, there were more attacks, with both sides blaming each other. At least 33 soldiers and civilians have died since Thursday. In Germany, at least 3 people have been killed and many others injured after a passenger train derailed. It happened about 150 kilometers west of Munich. Authorities say more than 100 people were on board. The cause of the crash is under investigation. Wildfires are tearing through parts of Greece and Turkey, fueled by relentless heat waves, strong winds, and bone-dry conditions. Emergency crews in both countries are trying to hold the front lines. Entire communities have been forced to flee because of the fires. And as Mike Armstrong reports, the situation is far from over.
There are multiple investigations underway in Greece into what caused dozens of fires just this weekend. According to the Greek Fire Brigade and its investigative unit, over just 24 hours, 55 fires were reported. Crews are still battling 5. What is known is conditions were bone dry. The region is in the middle of a heat wave with temperatures hitting as high as 44 degrees Celsius. Add to that wind that fueled and spread the fires. In this village, about 25 kilometers north of the capital Athens, 5 people were taken to hospital, but it could have been more. This woman says she stayed to protect her home and was lucky. She ended up surrounded by flames. This man says the wind was terrible. The fire was off in the distance and then moved to them in what seemed like a moment. To the east, Turkey is dealing with the same dry summer and heat wave and the same challenges that come with them. The country's been battling wildfires since June 26th. So far, 14 people have been killed, including 5 forestry workers and 5 members of a search and rescue group. According to the country's forestry minister, there was a sudden change in wind direction. The flames shifted and surrounded the victims. The northwest of the country has been hit particularly hard. Nearly 2,000 people have been forced to leave their homes. But much of the country has hit new record highs during this month's heat wave. One area in the southeast set a new all-time high for the entire country Friday, hitting 50.5 degrees Celsius. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
And closer to home, millions of Canadians are trying to beat the heat in the Toronto and Ottawa areas. Heat warnings are in place until at least Tuesday. Daytime highs are expected to range from 30 to 34 degrees, with a humidex that will make it feel like 42. It's already the 5th heat warning for southern Ontario this summer, including record-breaking temperatures in June. At least one person is dead in Newfoundland and Labrador after a small plane crash Saturday afternoon. The Piper PA-31 Navajo aircraft went down near the airport in Deer Lake. It's unclear how many people were on board, but the plane can carry up to 8 people. In a statement, the company that owns the plane acknowledged the crash was fatal, but did not identify anyone involved. The Transportation Safety Board and RCMP are investigating. This was the moment more than 170 passengers and crew were forced to take an emergency slide off an American Airlines plane. It happened at Denver International Airport on Saturday. Smoke can be seen rising from underneath the aircraft. Officials say there was a problem with a tire while accelerating for takeoff, forcing the pilots to abort. One person was treated for minor injuries. Nova Scotia's lobster harvesting season is now over until fishing resumes in the fall. But that doesn't mean fisheries enforcement ends. There have been tensions and even violence in the past between commercial fishers and Indigenous harvesters exercising treaty rights outside the season. Heidi Petracek shows us what enforcement looks like on the water as those in the industry hope for calm seas ahead.
Fisheries officers board their new 44-foot vessel. Brittany Chasson and Doug Landry off to inspect lobster traps in the Sydney Harbour near the end of the season.
We're going to haul the gear. We're going to have a look at it to make sure it meets all the regulations under the Fisheries Act.
It's not long before they find traps in an area closed to lobster fishing. The traps are seized. The lobsters tossed back into the water.
She's going to go right back.
Then the fisherman who set them comes along.
They're over the line, and they're over by quite a bit.
The unhappy harvester eventually agrees to remove them. The DFO has seized 578 traps as of June this year.
I think the fishers know who we are, and they do respect us in this area.
We hope to think that we're doing a positive job, right, with conservation and protection.
It's not always so conciliatory. 5 years ago, riots erupted after Sebaganagati First Nation launched its own lobster fishery in southwest Nova Scotia outside the DFO season. The band argues their modern livelihood harvest is permitted under a 1999 Supreme Court decision. Commercial fishers contend it threatens the stock. Tensions reignited in 2023, leading to several arrests. The First Nation is likely to fish again over the next several months.
LFAs 33 and 34, the last day of May was the end of the season, and that's typically when we start to see the poaching activity accelerate.
A group representing commercial fishers is taking the federal government and Sebaganagati to court, seeking clarified rules around treaty fishing. And the Unified Fisheries Conservation Alliance wants an enforcement reset from Ottawa.
The new minister and the new government deserve a chance to set a new course for DFO.
Our fishery officers, when they go out on the water, or whether they're on a wharf, they're checking for compliance, and it doesn't matter if it's Indigenous or non-Indigenous.
In a job that doesn't stop no matter the season, officers are hoping for safe and smooth sailing. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Car shopping and sticker shock coming up. The rising challenges and prices of finding a used vehicle. The impact of tariffs on the auto industry means new vehicles are coming with a higher price tag. And as Nivrita Ganguly reports, that's driving up demand and costs for second-hand cars.
Since the month of April, cars that we send to the United States have faced tariffs of up to 25%. Now, we also have equivalent counter tariffs on finished cars coming from the U.S. that are not CUSMA compliant. Now, this means prices are creeping up and consumers are feeling the pinch.
Canadians are broke, worried, and hunkering down.
Auto industry analyst Jeremy Cato.
The news of trade wars, increased tariffs, have certainly had their psychological and economic impact.
Following a surge in March and April as buyers tried to get ahead of tariffs, StatsCan data shows us that sales at new car dealers fell by 4.6% in May. And as Dan Park tells us, that's driving demand for used cars.
We saw a massive spike in May, used cars specifically in May. We saw a little bit more softness, and then we have a return to normalcy in July. July will be a record month for us. We've seen continued growth on our platform.
This despite the fact that used car prices are rising, a result of tariff-driven demand, but also a squeeze on supply because of the pandemic. Auto Traders Barish Akurek explains.
Between 2020 and 2023, 1.5 million fewer new cars were sold. Usually when cars are leased, they come back into the used market in around 4 years later. These cars that weren't produced, that weren't sold, they'll never make their way back into the used car market.
While we are still a ways away from the highs of the pandemic, when prices jumped 21% at one point, the cost of pre-owned cars is expected to remain elevated. Now, that's a hot market if you're looking to sell. But if you're looking to buy, experts say there is one soft spot, and it's electric.
EV prices are actually doing pretty well. They have been coming down both for new and used.
You know what the best deal in the marketplace now is? A used Tesla.
Nivrita Ganguly, Global News, Toronto.
Bison on the boulevard. Ahead, how these symbols of strength and resilience are supporting children who've suffered abuse.
Your new Miss Indigenous Canada is contestant number 3, Gina Boubard.
The new Miss Indigenous Canada was crowned last night. Gina Boubard hails from Saging First Nation in Manitoba. Now, prior to the contest, Boubard told Global News they want to be a motivational speaker who travels to reserves and other communities. The contest goes beyond beauty, also focusing on culture, community, and leadership. Well, it's been a long while since bison roamed the area where the city of Winnipeg now sits, but they're back in a way as a public art exhibit. It's raising money and awareness for children impacted by abuse. Melissa Ridgen reports on a herd of hope.
Manitoba is synonymous with bison. They're on the provincial flag and highway signs. In the late 19th century, they were driven to near extinction by overhunting and habitat loss, but thanks to a public art fundraiser, they're back, roaming half a kilometer of a Winnipeg roadway.
The bison were sponsored through companies and private foundations and private individuals. We raised $2.6 million in this project for the Toba Centre.
The centre is a support hub for kids who've been abused.
As magic happened, once the artist had this blank canvas.
This herd of 26 life-size 10,000-pound bison is grounded in Indigenous teachings, with bison as a symbol of protection and resilience, a mission of those in the business of supporting and protecting children who've been victims of abuse. Laura Lee Harrison was one of the first artists to sign on.
I've never painted on any type of concrete animal. This is my first experience with it.
Her piece is called Within These Dreams.
That the bison is like guarding their innocence as they're like resting throughout the night. And then the aspect of their dreams connecting is like them creating their own worlds.
Harrison loved the cause so much, she did a second bison for the fundraiser.
And to like stand in solidarity with the children and the youth and their families.
With more Canadians vacationing domestically this summer, the Toba Centre hopes to see Trans-Canada Highway travelers stop in Winnipeg to check out the Herd of Hope on display through October, when they'll go home with those who bought them. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
Next, Wimbledon's women's champion serves up some tough competition in Montreal. Canadian swimming phenom Summer McIntosh won gold today at the World Swimming Championships in Singapore. She finished more than a body length ahead in the 400-meter freestyle. The 18-year-old is hoping to win 5 golds during this competition. And many of the world's best tennis players are in Montreal this week for the National Bank Open. The stars taking the court include the reigning Wimbledon women's champion, who took some time out of her preparations today to trade strokes with some fans. Dan Spector reports.
I'm nervous. It's not every day mere mortals get to step onto the same tennis court as the reigning Wimbledon champion. But that's exactly what happened at this Montreal tennis club as a group of tennis enthusiasts got to test their wits with Polish superstar Iga Swiatek, the number 3 ranked player in the world.
Butterflies in my stomach.
Oh my God, I just played with a third in the world. It's amazing. It's such an honor, honestly.
Swiatek just landed in Montreal for the National Bank Open, the 6-time major champion's first tournament since winning her first Wimbledon title earlier this month.
Now when I think about it, sometimes it still feels like it was just a dream, you know, I'm kind of waiting to wake up.
The opposition wasn't quite as fierce at Montreal's Mount Royal Tennis Club, where she rallied with some giddy fans at an event organized by On, the Swiss clothing brand.
It was incredible. I'm exhilarated. I'm still shaking.
Swiatek was patient and encouraging with fans both big and small. She says the aspect of the game casual players need to work on most is the footwork, though she's a better player than a teacher.
I'm not a good coach though.
Swiatek is part of a star-studded field at this year's National Bank Open, which has just gotten underway. She's in the midst of coming down from the high of winning her first Wimbledon title and getting refocused for the hard court season that begins in Montreal and culminates with the U.S. Open in New York City.
Every time you feel like you play an amazing tournament and then you have a break and you need to go back on the court and grind again and find your rhythm again.
Some of the players here relished the opportunity to get beat by one of the world's best.
Like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And not only was it incredible because she's so good at tennis, but she is kind and humble and like no ego.
So that was just an honor.
Swiatek will try to continue on her winning ways this week. Her first match at the National Bank Open is on Tuesday. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Tracy Tong. Tonight's Your Canada showcases a huge Canadian flag on a hotel in Penticton, BC, a patriotic pool in Winnipeg, and the East Point Lighthouse near Elmira, PEI. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.